Are we live? Now we're live.
Welcome to show number 75. This is Martin Brossman.
Oh, I'm Elise Archer.
And I'm Barry Hire. She figured out who she is today.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
finally realized.
We had a different order initially. So welcome to our 75th show of Linking into Sales. We're excited. We have a great guest. It's been a regular here. And we have some exciting stuff to talk to. Over to you, Greg.
Yeah, so just before we get to who our special guest is today, which you can probably tell by the title, let's just run through just a couple quick things that we're going to start doing at the beginning of every show. You may have noticed from 74, we're kind of following this new format. But let's first talk about some social selling news, right? So there's a couple updates that have come out from LinkedIn. First, LinkedIn had Talent Connect, which was their show for recruiters, and they actually talked about a number of things, a number of new tools that are coming out to help recruiters with identifying prospective clients. Prospective candidates, not clients. Well, me and my sales mind, with identifying them for particular roles, because a lot more folks, what we're hearing today is that they're doing actually passive searches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this week I went to, Elise spoke at an event where it talked about personal branding, and then followed up by a very cynical recruiter. But that was fine. But
Don't mention names.
Heavily keyword-driven event, or heavily keyword-driven resumes and things like that. And one of the things I kind of walked away from was, how do we structure that LinkedIn profile so that way recruiters do find it when they're doing talent search, right? So we've talked about social selling yourself for a job, right? So we have an episode that we'll put in the show notes on where to go back to on this. But it just listening to how the recruiter and the kind of stuff that she has to go through in order to identify the right prospect, keywords is essential. And trying to figure out what those keywords are, sometimes that's impossible, but going back to your job description and filling that out. But one of the things that we are going to continue to stress going forward, as we have in the past, is creating customer-facing LinkedIn profiles.
Yep.
Right. So
what that means specifically.
Yeah. So what we want to do is, why don't you explain just a little bit more?
Well, I mean, it's really going to be the first impression you're committed to being in the world, and not just something what I use the Heidegger term, a thrown way of operating. And so we're going to go into a lot more detail of that in our training that will explain, but it's really thinking through that. What is the image you're committed to living from and operating out of as a professional?
Right. So they've this new referral application basically helps internal employees with recommending other employees for positions within the organization. So it could really help. I think there's a monthly fee for it. From a corporate standpoint, but it's something that's being rolled out within Talent Solutions. So just be aware of that. It's not really specific to social selling, but just kind of be aware of it as things happen. The other thing that rolled out was the new format to groups. Have you been in groups lately?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So
big changes, lots of excitement and upset.
It looks really, really good too. So
cool.
I'm excited to kind of dig in, and we'll have a post that will go up a little bit later on some of the really cool things.
But we want to hear your views on it too.
Absolutely. So there was this big, everyone was kind of talking about how all groups are going to be private now and how that works. Well, the Linking into Sales group on LinkedIn, which we recommend you come in and join. If you don't join there, follow our company page. But basically, it actually came out as a public group. Mm-hmm. So maybe they had a change of mind or something like that on when they were rolling this stuff out. So I don't know. But
we'll test it and let you know.
Absolutely. And then the other big news is over at Twitter. So we know Twitter is actually one of the top B2B social selling tools out there that you probably are not using. So we're going to show you more about how to use that. But Twitter, they have a new CEO, Jack Dorsey, who's one of the original founders. He also runs Square. So if you ever swiped your card on a phone with a little white square, he's the CEO and founder of that company as well. Square just went public. So it's something to kind of be aware of. So he's going to try and figure out which role he really wants. And I think he wants to go back to Twitter and function more there. But they're announcing layoffs because they actually, believe it or not, Twitter has over 4,000 employees.
Yeah,
very heavy-weighted company.
Tighten up. I don't think it's the end either. No, I think it's the start.
But they're going to let go of up to I think almost 350 positions there. Mm-hmm. And but what that means is that they're going to end up rolling out probably some cool features. There's some rumors going around about how they're going to count the 140 characters in a tweet. They may not count the hashtag. They may not count the username, just to kind of open it up and let us be a little bit more vocal. They just rolled out Moments, which is kind of cool. So
I want to mention that because if Moments actually does a real good job of using soft AI to curate the news and identify the hearsay from the facts, they could be a real threat or a real challenge to broadcast news. Because I go to Twitter first for breaking news, and if they're curating it and it's getting more accurate from their big data analysis, this could be a force that could be one of the most important news sources, because I'm getting so tired of trying to read the news and get through the pop-up and blinks and everything else that looks like the National Enquirer.
That's right.
On most of the news stations. I'll go to it. So I think it's important to watch.
Absolutely. I think it is. So one last thing we need to do before we get into talking with our special guest is mention our sponsor. So we're up in there at the wall above Elisa's head here.
Right here.
We thank you very much again to NC State Technology Training Solutions for providing us the space, the bandwidth, and the opportunity to actually record the podcast here within the classroom. And if we're flipped around the other way, or if you look at previous videos, you'll see that there's a bunch of equipment in here for students to come in and learn different things from a technology perspective, such as using Excel, earn your social media management certificate, which is the course you teach, Martin. Also, we provide our social selling classroom training here at NC State, where you can earn, actually any of the courses you take here, you can earn continuing education credits, as well as earn a certificate of completion for this, so that way you can actually take and post it in your LinkedIn profile. And if you were to ever come to our course, we'll show you how to do that. But check it out at linkingintosales.com/NCSUTTS. That's North Carolina State University Technology Training Solutions. So
good. You got it all out
7
correct.
characters. All right. So once again, thank you very much. And go check out episode 73 with Holly Sellinger, who is the Director of Technology Training Solutions. She actually talks about continuing ed for the sales profession in that. So could be very helpful for you. But anyways, let's get to our guest.
75. This is our 75th show. This is a big celebration. Imagine a little birthday cake or something in the background, right?
Absolutely. So he has been affectionately called the Alec Baldwin of the Linking into Sales Social Selling podcast, with a friendly reference to Saturday Night Live, which I think we'd love to have the opportunity to be that kind of a show. But he is Kevin Thomas Tully of R Factor, and he has actually been on our show 3 times previously talking about creating a social selling routine. But today, he is coming back to us to talk about his experience, his firsthand experience, and all the lovely things that happened to him at Sales Connect in Las Vegas, which was actually just last week, or I think it was last week. So Sales Connect by LinkedIn. So Kevin, thank you very much for joining us back on the show.
Well, I'm really honored that you invited me back here, and I'll gladly accept the moniker of the Alec Baldwin of the Linking into Sales podcast, because I really love what you do, and this is actually my first time appearing on the show with you, Elise. So I'm really excited about that and everything you guys are doing with NC State. Go Wolfpack! And so I just can't say enough good things about Martin and Greg, and now you, Elise. It's very nice to meet you, and I'm really honored and I'm glad to be here on your show.
Thank you. Yes, I've heard a lot of things about you as well. I think Greg led in with, he is the Alec Baldwin of our podcast. So it's exciting to be able to talk with you myself.
Well, great. Yeah, well, LinkedIn Sales Connect, it was October 6th through 8th, and it was in Las Vegas. And, full disclosure, it was the first time I had ever been to Las Vegas. And the first time I've ever been to Sales Connect. So I didn't know what to expect in either front. And let's just say I wasn't disappointed. Where should I begin? We go to Las Vegas. I'm sorry, Martin.
Just give a quick definition of what LinkedIn Sales Connect is in the event someone doesn't know.
Okay, well, in case anybody doesn't know, LinkedIn Sales Connect is a gathering of 800 senior sales and marketing leaders to talk about what LinkedIn is going to do in the upcoming year, and any new kind of technology and tools that they're going to roll out. And it's an opportunity for networking, to get in touch with the senior leadership at LinkedIn, and to hear what the best practices are that companies and people who utilize LinkedIn are doing to propel themselves forward, to propel their companies forward, and to take advantage of what the theme was this year was social selling. And there were a lot of great breakout sessions and opportunities where the senior leadership could learn about what the best practices are that other companies were using, and take some of those things that they learned and employ them back in their organizations. And it's a great time to network and to meet other people and talk about what you do best and what they do best. And of course, not do any selling because that was frowned upon.
Yeah. We won't talk about what we talked about off air.
Yeah. Keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Very good.
Right.
So was there any from what you walked away with? What do you think was some of the key things that you felt were super important that maybe our audience should know about regarding maybe what you learned?
Well, to use the Las Vegas analogy, and I know they have. I'm not a regular poker player, but to use the poker analogy, LinkedIn is all in now in social selling. So anyone out there who's listening to this podcast or who's watching this hangout, who was even thinking that, okay, well, social selling is a fad and it's not going to last. Well, guess what? It's going to be here to stay. And if you're not practicing it, you better learn about it real quick, because if you're on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has pushed all its chips to the table and they're throwing down their cards, and they are all in. Everything they talked about, everything, all the breakout sessions, all the lectures, everything was about social selling. LinkedIn wants you to know that if you're on the sales side, even if you're on the marketing side, that you should be practicing social selling. You're going to measure it and what it means to be in the sales side, how it is going to propel you not only in your organization, but through your organization, get you promoted, have you become successful, and at the end of the day, if you're in sales, help you make a lot of money. That was their theme. Their theme was, okay, we've crossed the chasm from just education to now fully implementing practice of social selling. But that being said, the what they were discussing for everybody here, Greg, Elise, Martin, myself, it was a little bit more on the early elementary education as far as social selling goes. To just let people know that, yes, we're fully behind it, but there were a couple different lectures and breakouts that went more into the details, but LinkedIn just wanted everyone to know that, yes, we're behind social selling and you should be too.
One thing, Kevin, what was in listening to what the crowd thought was most valuable, what would you say was theirs? Because you've been in it for a while, so a lot of beginning level would be obvious to you, but I'm more interested in what you heard the crowd responding to as though that was the most aha moment for them. What was the audience?
Well, it's funny, and I've Martin, and I've spoken to Greg about this, off camera, that there is such a hunger for this kind of information about social selling best practices, and even on the most basic and elementary level, that I think overall the event was such a success because anything that people talked about was just soaked up like a sponge. Any conversations that I had with anybody regarding any topic on social selling, it doesn't matter whether it was beginning or advanced, because everybody was at different stages of learning, it seemed that people were just hungry for any kind of knowledge that they could get. And they were responding to, I would say they were responding to everything. The event was overall, it was a success. And even people who are on a different spectrum and who are further advanced, okay, well, maybe some of this was, I don't want to say it was below us, but it was, we'll say it was repetitive. I could still sense that the crowd overall, I'd probably say about a good 95% of the crowd, it was brand new to them. And they were loving it, and they wanted to take everything that they learned, and they wanted to take it back to their companies. And they said, yeah, we're gung ho. We want to get this implemented because we understand that this is going to propel our organizations, propel our team. And look, the way that buyers act online, it's far different than the way they used to act before. So we either have to get with it or we're going to be left behind.
Kevin, I'm curious, what did you learn while you were there that surprised you the most?
Well, Elise, quite frankly, it surprised me the most that more people weren't practicing social selling. And I see this a lot on a daily basis. And every time I think, because I live in the social selling bubble that you and Martin and Greg live in, because you teach it, and the people that you talk on it about a higher level and more advanced processes. And I've got a select group of people that I talk to, and we share best practices and how we go about doing things. So oftentimes you're going to forget that there's a large majority of people out there who their education level is just at the beginning stages or even at the intermediate stages. And the things that you do on a daily basis, you just have to take a step back to say, okay, well, people aren't advanced in their education as you might be. And the things that you are talking about, you just have to understand, go back like 3, 4, 5 years to when you first started and put yourself in that mindset and say, okay, you got to crawl, then you got to walk, then you got to run, then you got to fly. So, you step out of the airplane, get down on your hands and knees, and just teach people how to do it the right way. And, there's a lot to be said for that, to be able to go ahead. And I know you guys are all instructors, to when that light bulb goes off in people's head and you can see it in their eyes and they just actually get it. That's a really great feeling. And I think that having those conversations where you can see that the people were hungry for this information, that was very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So when there was a live stream that was going on, and I got the chance to kind of catch some of it. Martin saw some of it. I think you were probably busy working with coaching clients at that point there, but there was a couple events that I thought were kind of interesting. One, they showed a list of the top 10 folks that had the highest SSI scores, so the Social Selling Index. And that was pretty interesting. We saw that you were on the list.
Yay!
Yeah, that was a little disconcerting to me. I mean, I know I was in number 8. I was very disappointed with that for several reasons. Okay, number one, because my score was so low. It was a 93. I don't think I've ever been a 93 in my life on the Social Selling Index. I mean, I don't know when they pulled that data, but I was a little embarrassed by that. I mean, I held my head in shame. It was, I expected to be on the list, quite frankly, but I didn't expect to be that low. And then it's funny, I'm coming out with a blog post today because I talked to everybody on that list, and I said, okay, well, where are you a week later? And a week later, I'm at a 98. I'm number 2 on the list. Only Lindsey Boggs is ahead of me at a 99. But I had been a 99. I don't think I've ever been as low as a 93. I'm not going to call for a recount. It's not like there are any hanging heads or anything like that. But look, the people who are on that list, and I've talked to all of them since the conference. I've talked to a lot of them at the conference. They're on that list for a reason, because they understand, the 4 components that make up the SSI score. Creating a professional brand, finding the right people, engaging with insights, and building strong relationships. And it's funny because where I'm personally weak is engaging with insights, and that's new to me, because I thought I had some good content that I put out there, and I talked to a lot of people online. I'm a pretty social guy, but apparently LinkedIn doesn't think so. So that was one of the things that I worked on in a week, because I wanted to see what would happen. And yeah, the score went up, but the Social Selling Index, one of the great things about that I learned at the conference, and it's one of the things that LinkedIn announced, is that they are making that a big part of LinkedIn Navigator. So as an organization, if you use LinkedIn Navigator, the Social Selling Index is going to be front and center. And not only is it going to be front and center, it's also going to be broken down by the 100th of a point. So as before, it was a 1 to 25 scale. Now it's going to be 1 to 25, but it's going to be 1.00 to 25.00. So they are getting very, very exacting with their metrics, which is what I like, because it will give people another measuring stick to see and compare themselves, not against only everyone out there on LinkedIn, but also on your team. Whenever you pull up your LinkedIn Navigator, your SSI score is there on the top right, and it compares you against everybody on LinkedIn, and you have a list of everybody on your team, and you have a list of everybody in your industry as well, but not the only people you see in the exact list of scores is everybody on your team. So from a sales perspective, every salesperson likes to compete, but every salesperson likes leaderboards. So that's good, and that's motivating, because everybody always wants to be on the top. And it's also a good measuring stick to see how you do as compared to everybody in your industry and everybody overall on LinkedIn. So from a LinkedIn perspective, if you're going to look at a purely marketing perspective or what it's worth to LinkedIn, it's going to keep people on that site longer because people are going to take a look. They're always going to see the SSI score, say, okay, what can I do to move my SSI score up? Okay. And so maybe they'll stay on the site longer. Maybe they'll do some more things. And you know what? Maybe, just maybe, they'll get something out of it. Maybe it'll turn into more revenue. We shall see.
Kevin, do you think they might integrate Twitter into it? Because that's something I see missing in the SSI score of not, they could easily have you hook into your Twitter account and monitor. I mean, cloud, hooks into everything, but that's something I see missing in it. What do you think about that?
Well, I think to quote a really good friend of mine, Jack Kozkowski, who said it the other day, and I wish I had said it, LinkedIn and Twitter are like peanut butter and jelly. I think they go together, and I think it would be a natural thing to link it to SSI score. I just don't see that happening. I think LinkedIn takes a proprietary stance, like Miles Austin, good friend Miles Austin said, about their data, and they want to make sure they protect it. And for them to try to integrate across with another platform, another social media platform, unless, of course, they were to purchase Twitter, like they purchased these other things, then I could see that happening. But quite frankly, Martin, I really don't see that happening just as an association. I wish it would, but I really can't see that happening.
Which means there could be something on Twitter that might be the equivalent and the combined numbers in the future. There might be something coming out on the SSI for Twitter or something, or, some equivalent in the future. It's just I'm looking at the what's next that's missing.
Well, there was that study from Kite Desk and a sales guy, Jim Keenan, and Sean Burke got together to update a study that was done earlier that said that Twitter was the #1 platform used by social sellers. Now, I'm sure LinkedIn had something to say about that, and they were a little disappointed with those results. And there was an article in Forbes about that very study. But if I'm Twitter, maybe I try to leverage that and come up with my own index. Maybe Jack Dorsey, if you're listening to the podcast, that might be something good to do to pump up that stock price a little bit and maybe get some of those people back to work. But that makes sense because we're kind of platform agnostic. I mean, we love LinkedIn. We use it all the time. We love Twitter all the time. We see the value in both about starting conversations with a low barrier to entry on Twitter, moving it over to LinkedIn, taking it offline when you're going to go ahead and, actually have that conversation that's going to lead to closing that sale. But, if I work for LinkedIn, of course, I'm going to think differently. I'm going to think LinkedIn be all end all. If I work for Twitter, I might think the same thing. Twitter be all end all. But because I'm an independent, I want to use every tool that's available to wherever my buyers are hanging out. Heck, if my buyers are hanging out on Snapchat, I'm going to be on Snapchat, and I'm going to be just doing what all the teenagers do. Look at me, the old man, talking about the teenagers. Those pesky teenagers, kids, you crazy kids. I would have got away with it if it wasn't for you. I'm all righty.
I get it now.
So with regards to how you kind of got your score up a little bit with engaging with insights, what sort of, so understanding that the 4 different parts of that score is, I think we kind of get that we need to complete our profile and make sure it's relevant. Identifying those people we need to connect with and doing that. But the engaging with insights, what does that activity look like on your end? Like, what are you doing to engage? Is it just going out anywhere you can and leaving a comment, or is it targeting specific folks and leaving comments there, or is it liking stuff? What kind of combination of things are you doing to engage with insights?
Well, at the risk of upsetting the LinkedIn gods and having them knock down my score, I'll tell you exactly what I did. It's really easy. You publish on LinkedIn. You write original posts and you publish on LinkedIn. You share the posts that you've written before. When you are on LinkedIn, you make sure that if you see something that you like, published by someone else, if you like it, click like. If you want to make a comment, click, comment on it. And then these weren't actions that I said, okay, well, I've got to do it, 10 times a day, once every hour while I'm awake and on social media, because then that you're just gaming the system. Yeah. But what I did, and, did I make a concerted effort to share my old publishes when I hadn't done that before? Yes, I did. Okay. Did I do what I had said that I would always do, which is stop being lazy and try to publish out more like on a weekly basis? Yes, I set that goal, and that's what I'm going to do. And when I was on LinkedIn and Navigator, and I saw something that I liked, instead of just saying, oh, that looks nice, and, filing it and using that information, did I actively like it and comment this time? Yes, this time I actively liked it and commented. Okay, now, those things are good social selling behaviors that you should do. Now, what in the past? Okay, I was lazy, and my score reflected my laziness with that low 93. Lazy boy score. So stop being lazy, and guess what? Your score goes up. You get rewarded. It's very easy to just fall out of practice with doing the right things that you need to do social selling wise, because you want to just say you're going to worship at the cult of being busy, which is, it doesn't take anything. How long does it take me to say, okay, Elise wrote a great post. Okay, Elise, I like it. And yeah, I can add a comment to that. 3 sentences. How long does that take? That takes less than 15 seconds. All right. And then you are adding valuable insights to Elise's post. And you are adding something that someone may get some kind of valuable insight to and may spur on conversation. And you know what? That kind of conversation may eventually lead to someone reaching out and interacting with you on LinkedIn, which may eventually lead to someone having another conversation with you, which may eventually lead to you selling something because you took 15 seconds and made a comment on a post that Elise made. I mean, think about it. There's no excuse to not do that. So it wasn't some kind of contrived action by me to get my score up. It was just me waking up and saying, stop being lazy, Kevin. That was it.
I'm curious, out of the 10 of you who ranked the highest on the score, were there any commonalities amongst you that you noticed offline as far as industry? Are you guys all expert networkers offline? I'm just curious.
Neuroses.
Neuroses. Weirdnesses.
I really didn't get into too much of an in-depth conversation as far as that goes. The only thing that I noticed is that we were all in sales. So maybe that had something to do with it. I did have a really nice conversation with, I'm going to make sure I get Franny's last name correct, because Franny works for 6 Sense and she's into data, and I'm a huge data geek. So I want to ensure that I have her name correctly. Franny. Okay, and of course I've lost it because I'm looking for it. So whenever I look for something, it automatically fades into the background. Franny's last name is Danzinger. Anybody who talks about data in my book, I'll just have a conversation with them all day, all night, because I'm just such a data geek. Jake Rainey from HireVue, I've known Jake forever. Paul Ratner happens to work for, an NBA franchise. It's just the only commonality, I think, to answer your question, Elise, is that we all love social selling and we all practice what we preach. And I think that's why everyone's score was above 90. And I think that the data turned out by LinkedIn says that you're 3 times likely to make club and get promoted if your SSI index is greater than 90. So that's according to LinkedIn's data. I think they surveyed, and that's a few years old. They surveyed more than 5,000 sales professionals, and that's what they found out. So.
Cool. Benchmark.
Interesting. So, all right. So let's move off of the social selling index score. I think we've gotten that down pretty good. So, getting out there and engaging, absolutely important. I agree. I need to do it more often because it's actually the weak part of my score. But let's get into talking about some of the other presentations that you saw. The one that I saw that I thought was extremely good, and I know you were in the room, so it must have been even better, was the one where it was, I think, Brad from CEB, right, the Corporate Executive Board, where he talked about the new book that I have. I actually won a copy of it. I'm waiting for it in the mail from the Marketing Experiments, Marketing Sherpa. So it's the Challenger Customer, which is a follow-up to their book, The Challenger Sale. And I thought it was kind of funny how he, about 5 minutes into his presentation, he said, some of the data might have been a little bit off in Challenger Customer or Challenger Sale, and this might be actually the right book we should have written. So go ahead. I mean, there was really some good things in there, and we kind of talked about a couple of those points in there. So why don't we get into it? Let's talk about that for just a few.
Yeah, Brent Adamson, who gave that lecture, that was probably one of my top two lectures that I attended. I thought that was tremendous, and it kind of reinforced something that I think a good number of top sellers just do inherently, in terms of finding that one person within an organization who's going to build consensus, who is the champion, and who's going to get the other decision makers together in order to move a sale forward. And one of the statistic that he put up on the screen that really got to me was that, okay, you have your buying personas, and you need to get sell to persona A, persona B, persona C, and persona D, because they're all the decision makers in an organization. They're on the buying committee. The stat is, the buying committee today is made up of 5.4 people. If you try to individually sell to the person A, B, C, and D, that your chances of moving that sale forward actually fall by 4% if you try to individually target those people. But if you have someone that you are targeting, and they get consensus and they bring in person A, B, C, D together, your actually chances of moving that sale forward increase by 4%. And that sounds counterintuitive to, if I can target Greg and I know more about Greg and I can just sell to him and I know what makes him tick and I know what makes Elise tick and I know what makes Martin tick, logically that sounds like, okay, well, I'm going to have a better chance, but if I've got, this other person here who works in the organization and who knows the three of you and can get the three of you on board to what I'm trying to sell, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense if you think about it, because it works in the same way, much like hiring. If I'm going to apply for a job to linking into sales, and I'm applying from the outside, okay, well, I'm just a candidate from the outside. But if I've got somebody who I'm friendly with inside of linking into sales, and they go to Martin and Elise and Greg and talk about what a great guy Kevin is, I've got a greater chance of getting that job than I would if I were to go to Greg individually or Elise individually or to Martin individually. So if you think about it in that perspective, and that's what the perspective that I put in my mind when Brent was discussing that's the analogy that I made, then it makes a whole lot of sense why, if I try to target those people individually, my success at closing the sale actually goes down. And that to me was an eye-opening statistic. And I thought, okay, well, that's, sales managers who are trying to say, okay, we need to get everybody on the buying committee together and we need to go after them individually. No, it doesn't work that way. You find the one person who can build consensus, and that's the person who you want to get on board. And that's the person who you want to kind of do your work for you and say, who do we need to get here? And do you know these people? And can we get them together on, move the sale forward?
Kevin, it's really interesting because in groups, there tends to be the person with the leadership title and then the person who actually has the leadership power. And they aren't necessarily the same. It even goes all the way back to the years of training in Aikido, when we were taught if you're being attacked by a group, you need to find out who carries the power in the group, not who is the leader, and take him down first, and the others follow like dominoes. Now, that's a strong stretch, but it is really interesting in human beings how the dynamic is. Somebody will have hold the leadership power in the leadership, meaning the people will follow them, the people respect them. And it's not always the one with the title. And I think this is an important piece to bring up in this. And also really liked in my own exposure to it that they're talking about the salesperson that's bringing the next frontier more than just the peacemaker that's connecting people. because that's more proactive, and you're going, where will this be the next cutting edge for my customer as a salesperson? Then I'm just getting everyone together, and that the person that just seems to get them all together actually has the lower numbers. So that was another piece I thought from my early exposure of this good work.
No, you're absolutely right, Martin. It just seems that, you know, they talked about the 7 types of customer stakeholders, and they talked about, you know, the go-getter and the skeptic and the teacher are of the 3 of the 7 that you really wanted on your side. And, you know, the skeptic, I can see that, and the go-getter and the teacher, absolutely. And because those are the ones that are going to help you move the sale forward. And the other ones they were talking about, you know, the friend, the guide, the climber, and the blocker. Of course, you think naturally you want to get the blocker on your side, but the blocker doesn't have any interest in you. They just, you know, they don't want to change the status quo. They're happy with who they are and what's going on. And no, they're just not interested. Never going to be interested. You're never going to get them changed. But yeah, to your point, I'm about halfway through the book, and yeah, it's a great book. Really.
Well, we hope we're looking forward to getting one of the authors on in the future. So that's something we're working on that would be really fun to include.
Now, what is your perspective? There was one other point that I thought that was very interesting, which was when he talked about how we may have been telling salespeople to be a thought leader, and that may be wrong.
That's another good point.
So, in which we hear a lot of this rhetoric, even coming from some of the social selling voices that are out there, is that you have to be, if you're in sales, you have to share content, so that way you're a thought leader. And I know that management's sitting up there saying, I don't want my salespeople being thought leaders, you know, because then they're all going to be doing is thinking all the time, and they're not going to do any action, right? So, but the term that he mentioned, that Brett mentioned, was commercial insight. And when he said this, it just like, holy crap, that's right. That reminds me of the audiobook by Dr. Thomas Stanley called How to Network with Millionaires, and how he gave an example of this one guy who was a master at ones, but never master at the one big thing. He was always good at getting, you know, one small business owner in multiple different industries, but was never very successful until he was instructed to go target a specific group of people that had the wealth, and went after them. And eventually he branded himself to become, you know, the financial advisor for CEOs of, in this example, is food processing companies, where he found his avenue was through journals, which that tells you how dated some of this stuff is, but how relevant it still is today. But providing commercial insight to a specific group of people. So if you're selling cloud computing, if you're selling real estate, what is your knowledge in that specific industry, and how can you advise people and help them to make good decisions around that specific area, right? So what was when you heard that, what'd you think? What would you kind of walk away with from that?
Here were my initial thoughts, Greg. There's people get hung up on the term, you know, thought leadership, trusted advisor, commercial insight. It's all the same thing to me. Okay. You know, social selling breaks down to 3 things: content, conversation, conversion. Only 3 C's, only 3 things you need to remember. So the first one is content, and whether or not you want to use it for thought leadership, to be a trusted advisor, to provide commercial insight, I don't care how you want to frame it. You're providing value for a reason. Okay. If you're going to use it to challenge your customer, if you're going to use it to position yourself as a thought leader, if you're going to use it to position yourself as a trusted advisor, if you're going to use it to provide commercial insight, I don't care. It's value that you're providing for your client. And unless your client or customer or potential buyer sees it as valuable, you're not going to get anywhere. That's the first step. Okay? You're not getting anywhere. So you can call it whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. And everybody's got a different philosophy, but that's the first step in social selling. It's content. All right. So put it however you want, position yourself however you want. I don't have any argument with any philosophy that the person wants to push forward, but it all comes down to value. Is your content valuable? And if it is, then you're going to have a conversation. And if you have a conversation, it's going to lead to conversion. And that's a sale.
Yep. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. All right.
I think any questions you have, I think we got the main topics we wanted to cover.
Yeah. So, I guess one last little thing is, what was it like to watch Lindsay Boggs make 2 free throws and earn some money?
It's funny because, I'd never met her in person, and until I read some things online, I met Lindsay, and she's tall, and yeah, I think she's 6'1", and she had heels on, so she was especially tall with heels on. I'm only 6 feet, so she was especially tall with heels on. So naturally, I'm going to assume that tall woman, stereotypical. She plays basketball. So I'm like, no big deal. She sent a couple, free throws, big deal. And then I read that she never played sports and opera singer. And look, anybody's gonna do a couple free throws in high heels, more power to them. I think that's
right. Hats off.
Especially in a pressure situation like that, which is great. And she banked them. So when you're gonna bank them, that proves that you took the time to study, to practice. And look, you don't have to go for the swish as long as they go in. Maybe if Shaq banked a couple more, his percentage would have gone up a little bit. Or did the old school Rick Barry, between the legs. But yeah, it was a great event. And you know what? It just goes to show that the top performers always rise to the pressure. And again, I don't know anything about Lindsay Boggs, but if that's any indication of how she performs in her day job, which is not shooting foul shots with Shaq, then she must be doing very well. And I know that you know of her, or know her personally, and so I'm told that she does very well. So good for her.
Well, excellent. Well, this will wrap up our 75th show on Link Into Sales. So we're excited to have. We really thought through who would be on that show to commemorate 75 shows and many coming. And then we told Elise she has to be on all the next 25 so we can celebrate 100, and then we can have her 25 plus that in there too.
I'm committed.
Yeah, excellent.
Very good. So again, thank you very much for joining us today, Kevin. I know we're going to have you back on again because this is just how we do it. I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity. We have some other things that you and I and all of us are going to take and work on, and hopefully helping the Southeast a little bit with some social selling stuff. So we're going to follow up and talk with you about that. But again, thank you very much. Tell us where we can learn a little bit more about you and what you're doing over at R Factor.
Well, the easiest way, if my lower third were working, you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin T. Tully. That's 2 T's because I'm terrific. KEVIN TULLY. Just follow me on Twitter right there, and you can find out everything you need to know about me and R Factor, which is, of course, the best social sales communication tool in the world, because we do integrate with CRMs and no one else does. If you want to truly measure social selling and the ROI of social selling, R Factor is the only way to go. Blatant self-promotion warning.
And well done too.
Very well done. Well, I know we had Julio on a few episodes ago. I looked at the platform. Anyone who's listening out there, the few folks that do, because it's a lot, definitely go out and check it. Actually, conversate with Julio and with Kevin on social. They will talk back with you and provide you some insight as well as to what you can do with solving those social selling issues. But we really enjoy the solution. We're looking forward to deepening the relationship with R Factor as well. So. But thank you very much. So I
just want to share one quick story about Julio before we go.
Okay.
Way back when, you want to talk about social selling, Julio actually gave me the secret social selling handshake about 3-4 years ago when I first got started in this whole business. He took me around back when he was with that other company, that owl company that I'm not going to name. And he introduced me to everybody in the circle and basically gave me the Pope's blessing and said, this guy's okay, you can talk to him. This guy's okay, you can talk to him. So Julio and I have been friends for a long time, and he's the reason why I came to work with R Factor, because of Julio. I had the opportunity to go work with him. So this is a really exciting time for me. The fact that I get to work with him hand in hand on a lot of good things. So, I mean, this is social selling come full circle. He actually introduced me to everyone in the circles, and now I actually get to work with him on a daily basis. So I'm really excited about that part.
That's super exciting. And we're glad that we get a chance to align linking into sales with what you guys are doing with R Factor. So very, very exciting there. Well, again, I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, and I'm sure we will catch up with you soon. And we have a few social selling tips,
let's hit it.
to provide. So,
Excellent.
Again, thank you very much, Kevin. We have actually some tips. I think I don't know if I have anything. I don't think we prepared any.
Any more tips?
No. Do you have any suggestions?
Well,
I know. I got one.
Make sure it's 20%, and they're Oh no, that's different. Go ahead.
So, I got a quick tip for you. All right. So, in the middle of November, we're going to be launching socialselling.training. This is hopefully the first time you've heard about it. If not, maybe you've heard about it a little bit. But what we want you to do is to get pre-registered. Actually, all you need to do is go out to socialselling.training today, and you'll see a countdown page as to when it's going to come out, and just drop your email address in there. All right. And then we're going to send you an invite as soon as we launch the site, and you will get, I think it's 3 free courses, which are going to talk about how to look at yourself as a social seller, how to set up your LinkedIn profile with LinkedIn profile fundamentals. And then also we're going to do some Twitter profile fundamentals as well, some fundamentals of Twitter. And the reason why we're going to offer those for free is because those are the most frequent questions that we get. And it's time for people to have free access to that information and to learn this stuff at their pace based on how we instruct. Now, we have experience with instructing. We've been doing linking into sales since 2009. We were doing social selling when it was called Sales 2.0, right? And then Niall from, I can't remember where he is now, but Niall's the one who coined the phrase. I'll put a link to Wikipedia about that. He coined the phrase Sales 2.0, and then eventually it evolved into social selling. But we're right on the same thought. I think he did a couple years before we did, but Martin and I saw this great opportunity. Elise sees it today, which is why she's working with us. And we know that you need to learn the basics. Stop going to those networking events where they all just want to talk about the basics, and you can come out and learn it for absolutely free from linking into sales on socialselling.training. So if you're not familiar, that's .training, sort of like it was .com, but I don't want to confuse it.
It's in the link.
We'll link to the post, and as well, if you go to online training on linkintosales.com, you can learn more about that. So that's my app pick for the week. I don't have any other updates other than Netflix updated, so that's awesome.
Right. And then, well, Skype made some updates and some other things, and we want to watch Twitter to see if it becomes. I still want something. I want to see Twitter evolve into the leading source of understanding what really is relevant news and curating it. I'm cheering them on for it, because I think if they have the resources, because I want the news. And I want it to be able to dial it in when I want it in more detail. And I'm willing to, if I have to pay for it, I am. But this collection of junk with flashy ads in my face, it looks like National Enquirers, I'm going to say no to. So I'm cheering them on as being the future. Also, I'm going to ask people, if you get value out of this show, we realize we haven't asked you enough to just review it. We want your honest comments. We're on almost all the platforms. Take a moment and write a review. We learn from your comments, positive, whatever it is. Of course, we love our 5 stars, but we want the truth, and put them on there. We want to hear your feedback on each one of the platforms. We appreciate it. You want to say anything? As a regular member here?
I know, it's exciting. Well, I fully endorse socialselling.training. Thank you as a new official member. And I'm excited to meet you, Kevin. So it was an awesome podcast to join you on, and just super excited to be here. So
likewise, Elise. And since we do know each other now, professionally, I'm sure I can expect a LinkedIn connection request.
It'll be there. Don't worry. It's hot in your inbox.
Outstanding.
So this is Martin Brossman,
Elise Archer,
and Greg Heyer, and you've been watching Linking into Sales, the Social Selling Podcast.
Excellent. Thanks, folks.
Bye.